It was about prioritizing things in my life. Like, you can apply the same principle to anything else. Like, as long as it's a priority, you'll do it. I owe myself this, because if I don't focus on this, what is anything else sort of worth? Like, what? And then it comes back to a bit of self-worth and stuff like that. It's like, if I don't have this, what am I? Is my life chaotic?
Hey, welcome to the Bodies Built Better podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Tan, and this show is all about human performance. And performance means different things to different people. So I want to make sure that I cover as many different topics that help you get the best out of yourself. I chat with athletes, health experts, coaches, scientists, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. We chat about all the best tips, tools, and strategies to help you get the best out of yourself and discover your extraordinary potential. And today on the show, I chat with someone who constantly inspires me, not just because of the ridiculously incredible trail events that he does that is like over 100K each time, but actually more so because of his incredibly positive outlook on life and everything he does. It's truly one of the most refreshing things to hear, to see, to be around, is someone's positivity around what they do, even when things are not going great. And this year he has been through quite a little bit. That has put a big spanner in the works in his training, especially trying to gain entries to qualify for Western States 100. So his name is Tony BRUNTON. He was an ex-client of mine. I would help him through his recovery process when he was training these insanely hard training sessions. We talk about his training. We talk about some crazy events that he's done and all the things that did go wrong and how we managed them, how he managed to keep on top of his mindset. And in one of them, walk basically the last 50K of it. So he's just extraordinary to have a mindset that is so tough to take him through another 14 hours of trail. Let's dive straight into it with Tony BRUNTON. Enjoy this episode. Tony, welcome. I was going to say welcome to the Bodies Built Better podcast, but I think it's more of a welcome back to the Bodies Built Better podcast.
And as always, still good to be here.
What people don't know is that we've recorded this already, except we had technical difficulties, which we weren't aware of at the time, and we had no audio. So here we are.
Giving it another go.
Doing it all over again. Okay, so I want to give people a bit of an understanding of our relationship, friendship.
Yeah.
You were a client, because I'm retired now, so you're no longer a client.
Early retirement. Everyone's dream, I guess.
I'm not living the dream yet. I've got to put that out there. It's still a hard slog. Anyway, it's about you. You would come in to get recovery massages because you were doing incredible training and aiming for incredible pursuits like running, 100-kilometer trail events all over the place, which is super inspiring. But to me, the most inspiring thing about you is your positive outlook. Anything that comes your way, you always have a positive spin on it. And I really admire that about you. And another thing that I respect so much about you is this goal that you set for yourself a little while ago. And that is the goal of doing 5K of activity.
Yeah, that's right.
Every single day.
Yeah.
So that's where I want to start.
Cool.
Where did this goal come from, and have you kept up with it?
So it originated from me and my dad. So my dad and I are both disgustingly competitive, really bad. So we sort of set a a goal. That's because we're both heavily active on Strava, and we're like, hey, let's do a bit of a challenge between us, see who can do the longest, right? Let's start at a 5K activity. Yeah, every day. Could be a kayak, paddleboard, walk, run, whatever sort of thing. We just needed to have that commitment to doing something every day. It went on for a while, but that's sort of where it originates from.
But what was it? Were you guys just talking? Were you out doing something? Like, what made you go, let's do 5K of something every day?
I think just banter between me and Dad of, because he's been doing a lot of running as well, and he's only sort of picked it up over the last few years, and I think it was just banter, like, oh, I'm always going to beat you because I'm younger or something like this, like hang up the shoes, old man, sort of thing, But that's sort of where it came from, just a bit of trash talk between the two of us, and he's like, right, let's see who can commit the most.
Yeah, and who has?
Well, he's currently in the lead now.
He's in the lead now? Okay.
Yeah, he's in the lead now because I had to take some time out because I had an operation. But that was, I think he is well over 200 days. I think he's coming up the 300 mark soon, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So good on him, and he's 64.
Fantastic. Yeah, so good. So what was your previous record?
I finished on a nice round 435 days.
That's incredible. Now I want to talk more about that, because to me, the thought of doing 5K of something every day sounds really quite arduous. I mean, I go to the gym and that works for me, and I guess you got to find something that works for you. But even still, it's not, I don't do or go to the gym every single day. So how did you set that goal and commit to it enough to make sure that you mentally showed up, but also physically?
I think it was about prioritizing things in my life. Like, you can apply the same principle to anything else. Like, as long as it's a priority, you'll do it. Regardless of how sore you are or something. Like, hey, I've made a promise to myself. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? Like, hey, okay, it's 11:30 at night. I don't want to be here. Like, it's raining or whatnot. It's like, no, I need to show up for me. I've promised myself this. If it's anything, say I set a list of jobs for the day. If this is the last thing I want to do, if I don't achieve anything else, at least I can say that I've done that one thing. I can tick it off the list, as shitty as it can be from time to time. I've got it done, and it's the commitment, and it's that thing for me, as well as competition between Dad.
Well, that's really interesting, because you go, well, yes, you've made the commitment to yourself, but speaking from personal experience, I mean, I've committed to doing things and then not done them. But it's you miss one day and then you go back to it. So is it just that? Is it that commitment to yourself? And I know you said the competition between your dad, which is fantastic, and that's that's the thing that keeps you accountable as well, which I think is really important. But is it just that commitment? Like, what's the mindset? What goes through your mind on the morning that it's raining and miserable and still dark and probably freezing? How on earth do you get outside and do 5K?
It's just like, you sort of wake up and think of your reason why you're doing it. It's hard to sort of explain fully, but it's just that commitment. It's like, no, I owe myself this, because if I don't focus on this, what is anything else sort of worth? Like, what? And then it comes back to a bit of self-worth and stuff like that. It's like, if I don't have this, what am I? Is my life chaotic? Like, if I can't commit to one thing a day, what else am I going to do? It's like, if I take a day off, then I'm always going to allow myself to sort of slip. It's like, okay, I can let myself relax. Oh, I deserve that day off. But it's like, what does it mean from a holistic thing? It's like, it comes back to different things in your life as well. It's like, okay, I really want to commit to 5K. Okay, you could apply it to so many different things. Okay, I told myself I want to progress my own business for, an hour. I need to minimize, like, maximize my time. So it's like if I do a minimum an hour a day of something, or you know what I mean, it's around that 1 hour mark. Is, you know, a walk takes about 45 minutes to an hour, you know, a run depending on length and time management and stuff like that too.
I really love that. And that self-worth piece is huge. You did mention, you know, if you're not feeling so great, tell me about that in terms of how do you manage your body? Because I can't imagine you're going to be feeling awesome all the time, and you have to manage your body in a way that you can keep showing up every day. And not only for the 5K, but you've mixed in your trail running events and your training within that. So how do you manage the training for that and your body?
So the training, like the 5K every day, combines into the training routine. So say I'm scheduled to go out and do a 10K run. Well, that's more than 5K. So that's the day ticked. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like anybody else, you know, I have lazy days where I'm like, I'm sore, like I don't want to do this, but it's like, okay, how can we channel the time into something else? Like, oh, okay, I'm actually really sore. I can't run every day. I'm going to walk today. I'm going to walk minimum 5K. At least it gets me out of the house and still have that commitment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the big thing.
I'd love to know, you know, you said 435 days. Over that time, was there something that, you know, you learnt about yourself, or, you know, you discovered something that you maybe wouldn't have if you hadn't committed to that?
I think resilience in myself, like, and the fierce, like, discovery of like, shit, I can do this, you know, like, because it's such a daunting thing as well. Like, you know, you get, you know, a lot of people quit after maybe like a month or so, or, you know, maybe they get more than 60 days and stuff like that. But, you know, that comes back to, you know, what I'm feeling when it's raining and stuff like that. It's going to take me, like, say I quit on day 60, it's going to take me 2 months to get back to where I was, you know? So it's that, like, oh man, if I start from the start again, I'm no better off. Like, let's just keep going. And, you know, on the days that you saw, you're just like, yeah, you channel it somewhere else.
Yeah. I love that, because not only, I mean, you've said it, not only are you training physically, but you're training mentally as well for the days or the events where you turn up and shit doesn't go to plan. Speaking of not going to plan, one of your races, I'm going to jump to Brisbane Trail 110K, where you overshot 12 kilometers.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So an extra 12 kilometers on top of 110 kilometers.
Yeah. Big day.
Big day.
Big day out.
Tell me about how you were feeling leading up to that moment, and then what happened when you finally found out that you had overshot.
So,
or got lost.
Oh, I know, so embarrassing. But like, I was feeling really good, like leading up to I think I was like 40 odd K in or 50K in. And then, so, you know, walking along the trail sort of thing, I was feeling pretty good. I was like, yeah, this is going to be my race. You know what I mean? But yeah, sort of walking along and then seeing the trails marked and then looking the wrong way and noticing more markers and thinking, hey, shit, that's the right way to go. And I was like, cool, you know, let's go this way. There's three, how was it? So I was walking up, there was a tree and it went straight, like the arrow pointed straight ahead sort of thing, but it was about 50 meters back from like this little junction, like an offset slightly to the left, but the main trail was going straight ahead but would curve to the right. So the arrows like go straight ahead. So I kept going straight, but I looked to my left because the straight ahead sort of curved. So I looked to the left and I saw 3 pink ribbons hanging from the tree. And I was like, shit, 3 of them. This must be the way, you know? And then so, yeah, I turned. I didn't program the trail into my watch or anything. Like, I was just like, hey, let's just go this way. It was a lot of descent. I think like the total was an extra 1,000 meters worth of vertical ascent. So headed out that way, headed out about 6K or just over 6K or something like that. by that stage, like it was, heaps of descent. Legs were starting to get a bit cooked, running low on water, running low on salt caps, and cliff bars. Really, I had one cliff bar, and then so I hadn't seen anybody in ages, and it was a bit daunting. And I was like, oh shit, where am I? So I tried to call my crew, which consisted of my dad and one of my really good friends, Jack. And I couldn't get through to them. Like the phones were off. It was like they were out of range. But
Dad, where were you?
I know. I was just like, when I need you the most.
Exactly.
But I was like, oh shit, we knew that up in some of the hills where we went to a cafe and we had no service. So we're in that sort of area, and they were like, oh yeah, there's a problem with the Telstra tower or something like that. So they actually were having a coffee or something like that in that area. So they were actually out of range.
They knew that. What did they?
Well,
know
they didn't
that?
know.
They didn't know.
They didn't know.
Right.
They didn't check the phone because in all honesty, they're like, oh, hands off, Tony's just out there running. He'll be fine.
It's only 110 kilometers.
Yeah, and then so I ended up calling my friend, my really good mate Alex. I was like, oh, hey mate, and he's like, hey man. I was like, what are you up to? He's like, I'm just on the toilet. I was like, oh,
you're good mates when he picks up.
I know. See, commitment. And I was like, oh, hey. I was like, oh man. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, just out and about. He's like, aren't you meant to be running a race? I was like, yeah, I'm doing it right now. And he's like, well, why are you ringing me? I was like, I think I'm lost, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, real? I was like, yeah, can you check the map? Can you, because I had barely any service on my phone to get data. So I was lucky to make the phone call to begin with. And he was like, oh, yep. He goes, well, man, you're way off course. He's like, you were meant to go that way later on. He's like, you were meant to go straight at the junction. I was like, it did say straight, but it curved. And then I seen this and explained it to him. And he's like, turn around. He's like, or you've got, I think it was either another 6 or 10 Ks to the next checkpoint where I could sort of, turn it in sort of thing and call it a day. I was like, oh, I'll have a think about what I want to do sort of thing. And he's like, well, good luck sort of thing, on your bike, mate. And I was like, yeah, sweet. And then I sort of stood there for a bit and I turned around and it was just this ascent all the way, a gradual fire track ascent. And I was like, what would I rather? Would I rather quit? Because obviously I had to pay for Airbnb there, pay for flights. I'm like, well, I've come all this way to put myself through this misery.
Yeah.
I'd rather quit knowing I gave it my all, sort of thing. So I was like, right, I'll turn around. And it's a bit more of a hero story, it's like, hey, he got lost, but he turned around and he did it.
Yeah.
But a lot of feedback from the other runners were like, hey, a lot of other people got lost. One guy had to get helicoptered out because he got that lost. Nothing against a lot of people. I found a lot of people out there were discrediting Shona. I think her last name's Stevenson or something like that, who coordinates the run. Because there wasn't enough marshals, there wasn't enough this, there wasn't enough that. But I was just like, hey guys, you're here. We're all here for the same reason.
Yeah,
just try and make the most of it.
Some dude got helicoptered out. I mean, he was that lost.
I know, but it's hard to say as well. What his situation was as well.
Sure.
Was he disorientated from dehydration or, what put him there? Because, you hear some horror stories, when did he get lost? Because I see a lot of people start packing it in, their stomach goes, they start to get incoherent around anything post 80 Ks or post 70 Ks. They're not looking after themselves. They can sort of lose the plot per se. So, yeah.
So you turn around for another 6K.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind as you're going back? I know you said, yes, it's either let's just do this, rather keep going than quit. But how's your body holding up? You said that you didn't have much water. How do you manage all of that? Because it's not just about, I'm going to do this, I feel good. I'm going to, get the mindset right.
Yeah.
But physically you could start breaking down.
Yeah, it was a lot of self-management and self-talk, because it was shit, I'm running low on provisions. How am I going to manage this? So I was like, yes, I did run out of water eventually. I ran out of salt caps. Well, I wouldn't have been able to take the salt caps without the water anyway. I had one Cliff Bar which I was trying to like get down as well, but like Cliff Bars are really good if you're not in a race. You're like, yeah, sweet, they taste great. But when you're like dehydrated, they're mint, they're mint. But then like without water to try and get them down as well, you're just like, this is a bit gross. So like I literally put my hand out to other runners coming past. I was like, hey, do you have anything you can sort of give me? Like, ended up getting some salt caps and like another Cliff Bar, but yeah, we're still up shit creek, without any water. The quads started to cramp, and for me, when the quads start to cramp, she's game over. Like it's going to be a bit of a slog for the rest of the thing. So tried to like sort of felt them flutter. So I tried to sort of run where I could, but the legs would sort of lock out really tough. And I was just like, okay, not long to go. Like came across some marshals once I was back on the course, like a little bit further on, asked them how long to the water, and they're like, oh, you still got 5Ks or something. I was like, oh, how fast am I going now? Sort of worked it out in my head. Okay, it's going to take me X amount of time roughly to get there. Can I hang on that long? Got to the checkpoint eventually, like cramping real bad, sort of sat down, like got some water. They had like Hammer Nutrition salt caps, which I'd never tried before, but I was like, hey, better than having the none on me that I had because I'd run out sort of thing. So I was like, cool, smash some of them, stocked up on them and carried on moving. And yeah, my legs coming out of that aid station when I saw Dad and Jack, I'm pretty, like from what I remember, my legs were actually really wobbly. Like, how you see like marathoners when they're finishing their legs are all like spaghetti. That was like me trying to get out of the checkpoint, and I was like, nah, keep going, get the legs moving, they'll warm back up again sort of thing after you sit back down. And sure enough, they held in there.
Dude, you say that as though you had like 100 meters to go, but it was like 50, 60 kilometers.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time towards the end of the race like just walking, because I was like, nah, like there's not going to be much running. It was more like okay, how do I manage my mind and the time? So as well, like, okay, estimating the time, like it was slow, like towards the end, I think I spent like the last 6 or 7 hours of that walking consistently the whole way, like leading up to that point. It was like, yeah, a little bit of jog, a little bit of walk, a little bit of jog, a little bit of walk. But yeah, it was just like, how do I manage the time? And that's the thing, when you're out there by yourself, all you've got is yourself to sort of like talk to, or so it's like, hey, how do I coax myself into not quitting and not breaking down? It's like, cool, one foot in front of the other, look at the time, cool, I'm averaging like maybe 11 minutes a K or something because I'm walking. Okay, how long until the next thing? Break it down into little bite-sized chunks, all right, it's going to take me this long to get here. That sort of helped a lot, is breaking things down into smaller, more palatable things. Like, as Tito saying, shit, I've got 50 Ks to go.
Exactly.
So, okay. It's like, okay, how long to the next aid station or water stop? Cool. Let's get through, and, always, be, as upset and like beat down as you are, always positive to other runners on the track. G'day, how are you? Put a big smile on it. But as soon as they walk past or something, sad face,
That's it. I'm dying inside.
Yeah, but I'm real happy that you're here though.
Person.
Hey.
I love that, because it comes back to also that 5K that you've committed to every single day. It's that conditioning of being in your own head and being by yourself. And that's really helped, I guess, that play out in, that sort of situation. I would love to know how long that second half took.
I can't. It was a long time. It was a long time. It was dark. It was cold. Like, I think my time was like 21 hours to do the 122. And with that extra 1,000 meters of climbing as well, like that hurts as well. So
absolutely,
I think it was like 5,000 plus meters of elevation over the total course that I did, or like 5.1, 5.2. I can't remember exactly the number, but that really puts the sting on the legs and breaks you down a bit.
And your dad, how many times did you see him throughout that period?
I I saw them at the rest of the checkpoints. So
Yeah.
I think there may have been either 2 or 3 until the end, or it may have been 2 checkpoints and a water stop.
2 or 3.
2 or 3,
with
yeah.
60 kilometers.
Yeah, so they put water stops in, but they're unmanned. So they put them in spots.
Oh, so that's not a checkpoint though.
No. So
I
just a
see.
water stop. Yeah, so
Gotcha.
checkpoints are different where crew can get to,
Gotcha.
and like marshals and stuff like that are all there to help you out, first aid and stuff like that as well. So yeah, that was a big thing. The water stops sucked because they use these big, like 10-liter solid plastic ones that you get from like Woolies. And like, you know how you get the 10-liter box of water,
Yeah.
and you know, it's got
you gotta,
the goon bag inside,
yeah.
and you sort of
punch the cardboard open.
punch the cardboard, open her up, and then use the little like dimple on it to pour your water. It looked something like that, but it wasn't a box. It was like a solid thing of plastic, and it had one of those dimples. But every time I tried to flick it, like it was rock solid. You couldn't move it. And so I saw another guy come up later on down the track, and he was seething mad. Like he threw one of the containers, and he was losing his mind because everybody struggled to get into the water, and everybody was banking on them. So like people were like using rocks to like try and smash the lid off and stuff like that. Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. So I was just like, oh shit. Like I managed to get one of the actual plastic caps like right off, but like trying to do that when your hands are slippery from sweat and, you know, gross and stuff, like tricky. And so I managed to get it open, help him out a wee bit, like topped him up, and then we carried on our way. But I was like, poor bastard.
Wow. I mean, fair enough as well. Like you've barely got the energy to keep moving, and then to deal with that.
Yeah.
So what was the message from Dad and was it Jack? Did you say?
Jack, yeah.
Like every time they saw you, because obviously by then they know that you've had to do that extra.
Like they've both got really positive outlooks, you know, real similar mindset to me, you know, when they were sort of coaxing me out of that checkpoint, you know, and I was really wobbly, like I was really worried, you know, and Dad and Jack are like, keep moving, mate, like you will be okay, like the food and stuff like that will settle in, things will start to balance out. But when you're in that moment as well, you're just like, nothing could be worse than this. Nothing could be worse, even though it totally can. But at that point in time, you're just like, shit, like what do I do? Do I quit because my legs don't want to work? Like, and then by the time I got to the next one, we saw them again. They're like, see, like you're okay.
You got this.
You got this. You know, and that's, you know, from feeling so disheartened to like having, that's why you have a crew, perk you up, you know, and as worried as you get, it's not until, you know, you sort of leave them behind, you're just like, oh man, I'm without my crew, like, you know, how do I manage this now?
I'd love to go rewind now just a little bit. At the beginning we spoke about your 5K every single day, and prior to us chatting, you sent through some stats for events that you did, and one of them was you've done the UTA 100 twice. On the second time, which was once you'd adopted the 5K every day, you ran almost a 7-hour PB.
Crazy.
So do you really put that down to that 5K commitment, or better training, a little bit more savvy around what you had to do? Like, what do you put that down to?
Oh, I put it down to like definitely, the commitment to the training, because my volume, because I made that thing to myself, majority of the time the 5K would be a run, because it's like, you know, a 5K is, you know, 23 minutes for me, like on like an average holding pace, 23 minutes. So I'm like, okay, you know, all I need to do is go out there and do that. And, you know, if I want to run easy, probably another big thing that I've learned is take your easy days easy.
What's easy for you?
Oh, like,
is that a walk, or is that
in regards to a run sort of thing? Like when you go for a run, take your easy days easy, sort of thing. It's like, you know, that 5K every day did help towards the bulk of the training as well. But even when my legs were sore from a long run, it's like, okay, Saturday was usually my long run day, about 32K. And then the Sunday I would do a 5K, but it's like my legs feel like lead. I can barely move them. But it's like, hey, I'll go do 5K. If it's a bit slower than my normal pace, doesn't matter. I'm going through that motion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think for 2022's UTA, another big factor was that, was a result of doing 5K every day was I was about 10 kilos lighter as well.
Yeah.
And with more experience under my belt from the previous UTA as well, a bit of a different strategy, and probably the biggest contributing factor was they changed the course. It was the year they changed the course. So I think it was only 2,500 meters of vert over the 100K, whereas when I did it the first time, it was I think it was 4.4 thousand meters worth of vert over the course. So a lot of change there, but it was more consistent fire tracks, which, I was a lot better at running anyway. So it would have been interesting to see how I would have gone without the course change as well. But it's one of those things, at the end of the day, I ended up getting a silver belt buckle. That's what I've always sort of wanted. Hey, they still set the same expectation. You run sub 14, you get a silver, because the first time I did it, I got sub 20. So, which means I got a bronze. Yeah. So I was like, I always thought to myself, shit, I'm never going to get a silver, not on that course. You know what I mean? But I was like, oh, hey, they changed the course. How good is this? I'm going to get one.
That's great.
And I was close. Like, I can't remember what the exact time was. Like, I ran like 13 hours 40 or something like close. I knew I was sort of scraping it in to even hit sub 14 on that. But yeah, like a bit of a different strategy and, just more experience, that really helped.
Along with the stats, you also said, I've always been a cowboy when it comes to approaching diet and structured training. A lot of trial and error on long runs, and even being brave enough to try new things on race day, which is usually a massive no-no. What on earth are you trying for the first time on race day?
Oh, well, the big one was on like 2022 was the salt caps, like the volume of salt caps, because usually I'd go for like a 32K run and I'd take one salt cap over that whole time. And I'm like, oh, I might get hypernatremia, like, oh, a bit worried. But then I went like for the UTA and I was like, oh, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to eat these like candy sort of thing, and sort of made out my strategy was a minimum one salt cap every hour on the hour, but every second hour take two.
Right.
Or take one later on if I felt any form of fluttering in my muscles, anything that I may think like, hey, that could cramp. So which means I'm low on salt and stuff like that. Hey, just smash another one, but still stick to that plan of like, one on the hour every hour, two every second hour. And I reckon that was a big contributor to how it did it. But I was like, hey, I'm just going to wing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's like 13 hours. I mean, I'm not good at maths, so I'm not going to try. But
that's a lot of salt.
That's a lot of salt.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I was just like,
and how much salt is in a salt cap?
Oh, it depends on the brand. They differ.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it differs between brand. Like I think Hammer, and the brand I use is Salt Slick or Salt Stick.
Right.
Yeah, salt caps, because apparently, Google reviews, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they're there for. Tell us about your nutrition for race day and how.
I love this.
There is none. Is there any? Do you practice what you do in training, or you just
like on my long runs? My nutrition plan is water with some effervescent like sodium tablets in my Camelback sort of thing, and salt caps. That's it. I don't usually take any. I'll take a couple gels. I'll take a few gels depending on how long I'm going. But yeah, nutrition plan on race day doesn't really steer further than what I do during it. When I rock up to aid stations, I will eat pretty much nothing but lollies, because I'm a sucker for lollies, and watermelon. Just lots of watermelon.
Watermelon?
Yeah, watermelon's so good. It's so refreshing.
Okay. And pre-race?
Pre-race, I fast. Yeah, I don't.
You fast?
Yeah, I don't usually eat breakfast before a race.
How long is the fast?
Overnight, just
Oh,
overnight.
yeah, just
like
overnight.
So, yeah, I'll have dinner, but I'll wake up, won't sort of have anything, and even for my long runs and morning, like regardless of what I do in the morning, yeah, it's never breakfast beforehand.
Really?
Yeah. I just find I can't run, like I can't move with a guts full of food.
When did you find that out?
When I tried to run with the guts full of food, and I was like, man, I feel like shit.
Yeah, but so what had you eaten, and then how long after that did you go for a run?
Oh, so but like usually what I'd do is I'd make like I had a couple bits of toast and a banana, and then by the time it took me from here to drive to where I was going in the hills, I was just like that would be the time for it to settle, and then I'd start moving and sweating, and I'm like, oh man, like my tummy's a bit bloated, or that's not sitting right, or I'm just like, oh, this is annoying, and it feels like as weird as it sounds, it feels like I'm running heavier as well. Like if I try, I'm pretty sure, like from what I recall, because it's been a while since I've run, like in general, but I just have a tall glass of water in the morning. That's it.
Really?
And then just like that's what I usually do anyway. Like out of bed, straight out, have a nice big glass of water. And
so what's the meal the night before?
And
how many hours do you have that before bed?
I'm not strict on when I have that meal. Okay. So like sometimes it could be late, sometimes it could be early.
What's late and what's early?
Like 9
is late. Okay.
Yeah, 9's late. And then maybe 6. Well, probably maybe that's normal people time. 6 o'clock for dinner.
Normal people
time.
Right.
Yeah. And then I'll just sleep it off, and then the next day, just get up and just rip straight into it. Really.
And is there a choice of meal that you have? Is it the same every time, or
anything really? Like anything carby, like or nothing too like. Oh, I really like deep fried food. Who doesn't? But I'm just like nah. Like sometimes it sits well, sometimes it doesn't. So like mainly maybe like a pasta or something. Yeah, something easy.
What's been happening this year? Because you've had 3 visits so far to the hospital.
Yeah.
Tell us about your back, because you've had lumbar surgery now on the discs. Tell us what happened and how that's been, managing that, especially going from, doing something every single day, training for events, and then being out of action.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like with the 5Ks as well, some people ask me why I do it, and it's like because one day my body's going to not let me do it. You know what I mean? Might as well take advantage while I can and enjoy it. But yeah, like a bit of a humbling experience with my back, like 32 and having a disc surgery, like relatively like pretty uncommon. Yeah, pretty much like what happened with the incident was I was over in New Zealand, and I was staying at a friend's house. I had run UTA in October, and I'd sort of taken some time. I was still running, but nowhere near the volume. I was sort of, quote unquote, enjoying life, and just doing 5K walks. 5K walks or whatever. And then I was like, cool, the Christmas rush is coming. Everybody loves to put on weight. I was like, I'm going to try and get over that by starting to ramp up my training again. Like it was ever so gradual. I had started, doing 10Ks again. I'd met my sister over in the Gold Coast first to spend a few days with them because they were there on holiday from New Zealand. So I was like, cool, I'll go spend some time with them. Started running with them, like started doing some runs there, and then it was great because the place we were staying had a pool, so after the run straight in the pool, like never been able to do that, like one of the best things. And then so I was like, a bit stiff, and I was like, classic aches and pains from starting training again. And then so jumped on the plane, went to New Zealand, did the whole, I'll stay with this friend for a few days, etc. And I was like, right, I'm going to continue and take my gear with me and do the walks and do the runs and stuff like that. So I'd gotten up, I was staying with my friend Chris, and one morning I'd gotten up and I was like, right, just going to go smash this run and I'll be back, 5K is, easy, over in 20 something minutes, job done, out of the way for the day, check. And so where he stays, behind the house, they've got what's called a stop bank because they live next to the Waimak River. So when the river goes up, the stop bank stops the water coming over into the houses and stuff like that. So it's actually the perfect path to sort of run on. So I ran out of his house, like 1K to the stop bank, pretty much by the time you go around all the houses. And then so I was like, cool. Like they had this little low wire gate, like sort of stopped, stepped over it, did the run, came back. And I was like, oh, mint, perfect distance. Like, cool. The next day, got up and I was like, cool, I'm going to go slap this run. And got to it and I was like, oh, I stepped over it last time. I'm running really well. I think my first K was like a 4:10. I was like, no, running great, straight off the cuff sort of thing. No warming up because you know what I'm like with stretching. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna tackle this absolute beast, being a 30 centimeter high wire fence. Jumped it. When I landed, I remember putting my right foot down and then just feeling this like excruciating, like I'm not really a stranger to like pulling muscles in my back and stuff like that, but this time was like really different. I hit that ground and it just rocked me. Like I just sort of stopped and like I yelled and then I sort of kept stepping slowly. I was like, okay, I've pulled my back. What do I do? I've still got 4K left on the run. If I stop, I'm going to break it. I'm just like, nah, I can do this. It'll probably still do me the world of good. So first K was like 4:10, 4:15. I finished it at like 4:45s, but I still finished the run and I got to the fence on the return route and like stepped over it. Got back and like the next few days were like, oh yeah, like it's a bit stiff getting up and out of the chairs and stuff like that. Like definitely could tell like I was like a board, and then like a few more days went by and had to go over to the West Coast to see my friend Daniel because I was like, called him and I was like, hey man, like I've hurt my back, so blah blah blah. And they were looking at going to the Kumara races. Like this is the biggest event on the West Coast. It's all like little towns, like
sure.
On the West Coast of the South Island, there's all sort of little towns, and so he just lives in a place called Hokitika. And so like I was still really stiff and I'm just like, oh man, you know what, like I woke up one morning, I was like, oh, before the races, like maybe like a day or so before the races, and I was like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? Because I walked the days before, I was like, I'm going to go for a run. I was like, you know what? It's just muscular. So I was like, yeah, cool. I'm going to go do not 5K, 10Ks, because Yahoo. So like I did this run and I was like, cool. Like I could feel myself like loosening up around the hips, like lower back. I was like, cool. Like let's just keep it easy. Take it easy because take it easy days easy, right? And got back, sort of did some stretching, and Daniel was a really big fan of like recovery because he plays I call him semi-pro rugby, enough that he sort of gets paid to play, so good, good enough,
yeah,
sort of thing. And so he's got all these fancy contraptions for recovery, and he's like, oh mate, have you tried this and this? I was like, you know what, I'm your guy. Like after doing some stretching, I was like, I feel really good. My outlook on life had changed. Like the pain had sort of gone away because I was nice and warm. And afterwards, I was like, life's good. Feel good, fixed. And I was like, do your little magic on me, mate. Like, cool. Like really weird stuff. But anyway, and then what happened was I was like, cool. So went the rest of the day, and then it wasn't until the next day, I thought like if there was going to be any pain, it would be later on once I had cooled down. No, still really good. Next day, woke up in bed and I was like, oh my, I can't really even move my legs. Like I was just like, oh man. So I had to use like the headboard to pull myself out of bed to go on my hands and knees out into the lounge and be like, guys, a serious problem, like I've really done it bad, sort of thing. And they're like, oh mate, don't be pussy, sort of thing. Like come to the races with us. And I'm just like, oh, like I don't know if I can. Like I tried to sit the breakfast table to eat brekkie, and I was just like squirming, like holding myself up off the seat, and I'm just like, I can't do it. Like I have to, like it was either lie on the bed or lie on the floor. Like that, I couldn't sit on the couch. Like I couldn't sit. And then over time, like, well, Dad had to come and pick me up from the West Coast anyway, so traveled back with him. But when I was in the car, I was like holding on to like the door and the center console, like pushing myself up off the seat, and it's like a 3-hour trip.
Oh my goodness!
And I'm just like, oh man, like, yeah, this is really bad. Like, by the time I got home, my mum's got a really bad back, like, as well. And she had like 3 codeine left, and I was like, I need something, because I was only taking Panadol. And yeah, like I was like, hey, can I try one of these? Never had it before in my life. She's like, take one of these, had a bit of food. She's like, give it 45 minutes on the couch and then see how you feel. Game changer, like definite game changer. Obviously they're not very good for you, but you know, had them, I was like, shit, I can move. So with that, coming back from the West Coast, I hadn't done anything that day. And so Mum's actually got a set of crutches as well, because bad back. I took one of the crutches and I said to Dad, I was like, right, we're going. And he's like, are you sure? And Mum's like, no, you sit down, you stay there. Don't be,
she's smart.
I know. She's like, don't be so stupid. I was like, let me be stupid. Yeah. And so it was super slow. Like I had a crutch because I was like, I looked like a question mark sort of thing. I would lean to the right real bad. I'd have to stop, lean on the crutch, lean to the other side. Like I'd have to stop in order to change what side I was leaning to. I think it took me like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that, or more, to do this walk. But I was like, I don't care like how long it takes, because what else would I be doing? Lying there feeling sorry for myself. I'd rather keep moving. And in hindsight, like ended up getting an MRI and stuff like that in New Zealand. But, you know, in the long term, the doctors and surgeons were like, it's probably the best thing you did was keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell us about what happened next.
So made it the rest of the trip, managed to survive on the last couple of codeines, and then had some like real strong other like painkillers with tramadols as well to sort of get me through. I went and got the MRI in Christchurch and met with the sports doctor there, and that's when he sort of showed me the results of the MRI. I was like, because we were under a bit of a time constraint, because he's like, we want to see what's happened, because something that I learned is the inner gel of your discs, your spinal discs, they are actually treated as a like a foreign body. So when you herniate your disc, it's the gel in the middle that comes out the body, actually attacks it, dissolves it, majority of it. So he's like, right, we want to see it where it is. And then I went back like a day or two later, which was really good, because he's like, I'm going to mark it as urgent because you've got to get on a plane in the next few days. I was like, yeah, sweet. And then went back, saw him. He was like, well, you know, you've done a doozy sort of thing. No wonder you saw like I prolapsed L3-4. So you could see it looked like an L sort of thing. It was coming like out and down halfway down the vertebrae sort of thing. And it was compressing L3-4 nerve descending on the left side or something. So what actually ended up happening too was I became numb on my left leg from the knee down, because it was putting that much pressure on, and I had like power loss in my leg. He goes, yeah, this is, you know, if you've got power loss, your nerve is that compressed, like you're not firing correctly. So he managed to give me like all my results on a USB, and he's like, right, get on the plane, go to your GP, get the referral and stuff like that. And then did exactly that, went to the GP. They recommended me to go see a place in Norwood called the International Spine. And then, yeah, pretty much got looked after by them, and then had to unfortunately wait. I've got health insurance, but I hadn't had it for 12 months. And so in order for them, I think it was the anniversary of my health insurance was 30 days prior to them investigating if it was pre-existing. So I called, because I'm with Bupa. I called Bupa. I was like, hey, how long until you can prove it's not pre-existing. And they were like, it's going to take us 35 working days, which is horrendous. But it turned out my anniversary for the 12 months, so they don't need to do that investigation, fell in between. And they were like, well, if you can put up with it, like, still continue to, like, they advised me not to do the walks. They're like, you just need to chill out. Like, listen to your body, like, you know, don't be silly. So I was like, cool. So I just walked, and we waited for the anniversary we waited for the anniversary to tick over. We had booked in the surgery and stuff like that. And like, even the morning of the surgery, I got up. I had to be admitted to hospital at like 6 a.m. So I made sure I got up at like 4 and got my 5K walk in prior to surgery. Yeah.
What was the time frame between when you did it and surgery?
So I did it in January, and I'm pretty sure the procedure didn't happen until the end of April.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it was a few months that I was numb and just had to walk pretty much. Like, I wasn't allowed to lift. Like, I was pretty cooked.
Yeah. So, and you weren't running.
No, like, I wasn't allowed. Like, they made it abundantly clear, like, don't run, because if you've got the power loss in your leg, like, you could make it so much worse, sort of thing. They're like, you can still walk, because who doesn't walk, you know? But he's like, just listen to your body and stuff like that. If things get worse, like, you gotta stop, sort of thing. But, you know, I just took it easy, you know, like, sure, my 5K walks were like longer than normal, but at least I was still moving, you know, like, gave me a bit of sanity as well.
Yeah. So, and there wasn't any nerve damage
in the long run. Post-op, it was crazy. Like, woke up after theatre and I could instantly feel a difference.
Wow.
Crazy. As of where I'm at right now, like 99.9% of the feeling has returned to my left leg.
Yeah.
Full power, like feeling really good. Honestly, the best thing I did was go through with the surgery, because sometimes as well, like, meeting with the neurosurgeon, he's all like, you know, sometimes we get people to sort of not live with it because we're bastards or anything. We do it because there's more risk involved with cutting somebody open, because they make about an inch and a half cut in your lumbar, and then they have to shave a bit of non-load bearing vertebrae, and they sort of come in and they push the spinal cord to the side, and they use these little snips. Yeah, it's crazy to take the loose, like the prolapse or herniated disc out. So they're like, a lot of, like, it's quite risky as well, like infection, and, you know, like, they outlined all the risks. One of them was like, oh, hey, you know, we could accidentally rupture spinal cord, and the spinal fluid could leak out and stuff like that. Like, it's big risk. So they're like, ideally we're you know, advising that you do the surgery, because if you ever want to get back to where you were, this is what you need to do. Option. Yeah. And they were like, they could sort of tell who I was as a person, because they were like, we know you're itching to go full noise, like, you need to bear with us, and you need to be patient. But we will get you back there. It's just going to take a bit of time. Yeah.
How long was the procedure?
It was a day. Like, I think it was about 3 hours, I think, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then I stayed 2 nights in hospital. Yeah.
So after the surgery, do they get you up on your feet straight away? Like, when you come to?
Yeah. So it was they encourage you. The physios come around and they're like, right, this is how you get out of bed. Like, this is how you move. Because pretty much, if you think about it, you've got, I don't know if it's like a collagen or something that actually keeps the gel in the middle of the disc. While that's ruptured, and they've taken the part of the herniation out, it's quite common for it to re-herniate as well. So they're like, you need to take it, like, seriously easy. But getting up, like, was tricky, and they sort of showed you how to army roll into it and stuff like this. But, like, got up on the first day, managed to, like, go to the loo and, you know, do a little bit of a walk around the room. But I was like, no 5K today, boys, you know. But it was just like, cool, how do we manage this? Like, all new feelings with the body, like like, I'm like, well, the feeling's returning. I actually feel better than what I did when I went into surgery, which was so like, I can't get over how instantaneous the relief was. But then it's like, okay, let's not be silly. Let's just take our time. And I'm sure I took 11 days. 11 days. Yeah, including the day. Well, if you don't include the day of the surgery, because I did the 5K prior, but 11 days is sort of the time I was like, no, let's feet up. Let's move slowly. You know, like I had one of those grabbers, you know, the claws, the trigger claws, you know, the extended, they've got like the pincher at the end, and you pick things up off the ground because they're like, don't bend and stuff like that.
I see. Right.
Yeah. They're like, do that. And
gotcha.
Yeah.
Is that a bit of a mind play? Like, you've gone in excruciating pain and you've still walked every day. And, you know, when you did it first time, you even did 10Ks. And then to wake up, feel 1,000 times better and not be allowed to do anything.
Yeah, it was humbling, I guess, to be like, okay, it's interesting how fast life goes when you're sitting still. You know, like it's time to sort of use the time a bit for reflection. And, you know, it's like, okay, you know, how sort of planning the comeback per se. It's like, okay, how are we going to manage this? Okay, I know that I'm going to have physio for a while. Like, how do I do this? Because I know I'm not the best with listening to physio's plans because
you're a cowboy.
I'm a cowboy. You know, it's just like, okay, lift your leg, you know, do these basic, and it's just trying to make that mental connection with like, okay, we have to do these exercises no matter how lame they are. And I'm definitely still not a very good advocate now because I'm still going through physio. Like, I'm doing a lot better to say committed to that, but I'm more inclined, like where I'm at right now is, you know, yes, like I've had to sign up to the gym to do that, which is a real foreign thing for me. And then I've just been smashing a lot of indoor cycling, really. But that 11-day sort of period was, reflection. How do I come back? Like, it's weird. It was like a hyper focus, like, because when I did go for my first 5K walk, because I went straight back to 5K walk. Yeah. I was like, cool. If something goes wrong, I've got my partner, Ali, and I've got my dad, because dad came over from New Zealand. Spent a month with me to help nurse me, look after me, you know, just, and, I was like, cool, I've got them as the support. If I feel uncomfortable at any stage, I'll stop, you know, like, let's be responsible. By the end of like the first walk, like I was pretty wobbly sort of thing. I was just like, oh, I'm okay. Like, let's see how tomorrow holds up. Woke up the next day. I was like, there's no change. Like, I still feel okay. Like, okay, let's go again.
What do you mean by no change?
So as in like, how do I put this? Like, when you wake up from surgery and stuff like that, you know, you're obviously in pains in certain areas. I was trying to be conscious of, okay, I've woken up, I've gone for this walk. Is there any pain in different areas, or has the pain intensified anywhere else to represent a damage? You know, yeah.
So you felt okay.
Yeah.
And you said, so when was the first walk that you did post surgery?
It was 11 days after.
11 days.
11 days, yeah.
And then when have you started running?
I haven't been cleared. So I haven't been cleared for running, but
How long has it been?
It has been 76 days since the 11 days off, since I've started the 5K again. Yeah. It's been, I think about 76 days today.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's the projected timeline for you to start?
Hopefully.
Is there one?
Yeah. So when I first met with the neurosurgeon, he's like, Tone, you're going to be out for 9 months. And that was real daunting. Like, that was a bit of like, oh shit, like, okay, what can I do? You know, if it's not running, cool, which I love, then it's like, okay, how do we channel this into something else? What am I going to do? And so last time I went to the physio, well, the first physio appointment was 3 weeks post-op. When I went in, met with the physio, he was like, mate, you are moving like somebody post 6 weeks op. But he goes, doesn't mean you should leap for joy. And because they're like, just because you're progressing faster than others, your healing rate isn't, any different from anybody else's. Still take it easy, you know? And then he's like, cool, here's your exercises. And then I saw him at the 6-week mark, and he's like, mate, that one I saw the physio and the sports physiologist. And they were like, they sized me up, they put the things on my back, and they're like, well, actually doing really well. Actually, I think I saw them not at week 6, but week 8, because I had to reschedule because I had another surgery in that time.
You had another surgery?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And then so I saw them then. They put the nodes on my back, and they're like, pretty much you almost have full range of movement apart from, I think it was like my posterior pelvis tilt. I'm at like 2 degrees when it should be 6. But they were like, if you follow the plan and stuff and stretch and do all this stuff, you'll get that. Yeah, you should be a lot better.
What was that other surgery?
Oh, so I had a massive varicose vein in my leg. So I'm getting all these oldie sort of problems at 32.
Old person problems.
Old people problems. But yeah, like it was with that, like that wasn't as much of a biggie. Like it wasn't debilitating. Like it hurt from time to time and stuff like that. But the primary reason for removal is, yes, like it could cause problems, like massive problems, because of how extreme it actually was. Like it started like halfway up my thigh, went down behind my calf, split off, went down into my foot, like it's big. But like it wasn't stopping me from training and stuff like that. But the main reason for removal was just purely aesthetics. Like it would just be real, like, it was gross, but it was like real bulbous. So like after I would do a run, like just like anybody else would, the veins get pumped. But like this one would, if I was wearing like 2XU compression leggings, all you would see is the vein, like running down my leg. Like it was.
But it wasn't painful. Like it wasn't uncomfortable.
Not every day sort of thing. It wasn't an everyday occurrence. Like it would hurt at the joint where it was damaged. So the joint that was damaged, like the vein junction or joint, not sure what to call it, that was damaged was my large saphenous, which is up to I don't know if it starts, but like the valve that was damaged was up by my groin. So the varicose vein is actually the blood returning to your heart. So they were like, you can't fix that stuff. So either we remove the vein. There was a few different options and stuff like that, but did it stop me from doing the 5K? No, because on the post-theatre sheet, it was like, you can still walk. We encourage you still to walk for half an hour sort of thing, but like obviously stop if there's any pain. So I just kept walking a bit slower. But
so when was that post-back surgery?
That was, I think it was about 5 weeks. 5 weeks, because I spoke to the vascular surgeon. I was like, hey, I'm getting a discectomy, like how long sort of thing. I was like, can we do it the week after while I'm still, can we just,
whilst I'm in there?
Yeah, you can just come and dice me out.
Over. Yeah.
But he was like, let's give your body a minimum 3 weeks sort of thing. And then he was like, well, actually we can give it a bit more time if you want. So I was like, oh, whatever sort of thing. I was like, is it going to stop me? And he's like, no, it shouldn't, blah, blah, blah. And then, just actually read the post-op form, like info. And it was like, you can still keep walking. So I'm like, man, I'll do that. It just felt like I had this massive bruise on the inside of my leg, like all the way down. Like it still feels bruised even today. Like, if I do some like bike riding afterwards, feels a bit sort of tender and stuff like that. But speaking to the vascular surgeon, he's like, oh, that's a bit normal considering what I'm actually up to now.
Yeah. I mean, there's just been so much that's gone on for you. Going back to, how you've got such a positive outlook, when you look back at, what's happened, how have you, thought about the whole process? How do you think about what's to happen? And how do you keep that positive outlook?
I think what still keeps me real positive about everything is comes back to that whole I can do it. So I will because one day the body's going to say no, like it sort of has, but hopefully it doesn't. And it could be a lot worse. I think it's good to get outside, and that's what keeps me lively, and in order to keep it up, it's just saying, hey, I've got it pretty good. Somebody else definitely has it much worse out there. I'm just lucky for what I have and, what I can do because, sure, I'd kill to be somebody like Connie Walter or, one of the elites, but then there's somebody worse off than me. That's like, man, I wish I could even go out and do 5K every day,
Exactly.
So it keeps me pretty positive, it's like, cool, I'm not the highest end, I'm a real mid-tier sort of guy, but I'm just like, hey, I'm happy to show up.
Because you can show up.
Because I can.
You get to show up.
Yeah.
Where did you learn this? Where did you grow up within a positive family, or is it someone that you a friend or teacher that you looked up to? Like, where did you learn this positivity?
The old man's been a bit of a, go-to. He's sort of we're on the same wavelength. We're quite similar people. Well, of course, because I'm his son, but
makes sense.
Makes sense. But the overall positivity, just sort of things over the years, sort of, you just sort of learn it as well. But there's a line in the book of it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. The only thing I took away from that book, the only thing is treat this is mainly for treating others, but you can apply it to yourself as well. Always sort of be. It's like when you come home from work and you've got a pet dog, no matter what sort of day the dog has, he's always happy to see you. You know what I mean? And when you provide that positivity to somebody else, it brings them up, and then you just sort of gel. You're like, even, I'm pretending to be positive, but, if you bring somebody else up, you all of a sudden, you're both like, shit, this is a good time. Exactly. You know what I mean? And then you both turn out of a bad mood into a good one because it's like, let's just bring it to the table sort of thing. Yeah.
I love that. And I think, what you said in terms of you might, not that you said you're pretending, but because you want to be bringing positive energy to whether it's a group or whether it's a mate or friend or family, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that in turn, like you said, they pick up on your energy.
Yeah.
Then you both start to feed off each other, and you'd actually end up feeling better for it. So it's no longer pretending.
Yeah.
And that's something that I also have been working on, is just, showing up the way I would want, my friend to show up for me, but for myself.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing. You don't, if there's two miserable people, you'll be miserable. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Somebody wants to hang out with you. People go through bad stuff. Everybody does, but if you try and sort of bring yourself up, other people will bring you up, and you just hang around the people that bring you, positivity, and pick and choose.
Yeah, that's it. I'd love to know who you look up to.
Overall, or in general?
I'd say in general.
In general, I look up to my old man. He's pretty good. He's a pretty good dude. But also there's a lot of other people. Probably a primary one for me would be Courtney Walter. She does those crazy, amazing races, which I would only ever dream of doing. But whenever you see her out on course, she's only ever positive. She's only ever happy. She's always so stoked. Always so excitable. It's just even watching the clips of her on Instagram and stuff like that, you're just like, oh, I feel charged after this. You know what I mean? You're just like, woo, because they go through the same highs and lows as anybody else. But mainly Courtney. Yeah, she's a bit of a rock star. You know?
Yeah, amazing. I want to know what your tips are for the people who are listening. If they're thinking, I might try this 5K every day.
Yeah.
Maybe, hopefully. Wonder if I'll stick to it. What advice would you give to them to not only start it, or actually, maybe they're not thinking about it. Why should they think about it? If they do decide to do it, how can they keep on top of it? And anything else you got?
Just remember, when you're sitting on the side of the bed in the morning and it sucks, like, just think why you're doing it. Like, because it depends on what they value, you know what I mean? If they don't value the 5K, it doesn't have to be 5K every day. Just showing up for yourself and picking one thing that you will just do absolutely anything to do, like, it's just about values. And just sort of sit on the bed before, or sit on the chair before you lace up and just think to yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, what's the driver? Like, what's the goal here? What am I going to achieve? How much better will I be? And just make sure that it's one foot in front of the other, and you'll get there.
Yeah, just get it done. I have to say, since our last conversation, which people are hearing for the first time today, you've inspired me, and I'm doing something every day now.
Awesome. Yes.
So I'm pretty happy with that. I've been doing some runs as well, which is the first time, because I've had a bit of a leg chronic injury thing that's always stopped me from running, because as soon as that flares up, then I can't do any of my training, because it even affects my training at the gym, which drives me nuts. But I'm slowly doing a little bit every day.
That's awesome. Hey, you start at one place. Thank you. So, hey, get around Strava. I'll drop you some kudos.
Not a chance.
You'll hide away.
All right. And so for the last question, I actually like the guest to ask a question of the listener, because your experiences have been, obviously, as we've learned today, a whole lot different to mine, and maybe similar to others listening. But I'd love for you to ask the listener a question of themselves that they can, move forward today in a more positive manner, or, whatever you think is important that they ask.
Pretty much what I really want to know is what's people's driver, like what gets them going, like what's their one thing that sort of gets them to do anything, Why wake up in the morning? What's the main thing? What's your kicker? What's your why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I think that's so important, because I think we can get so used to just becoming robots and getting up and doing the same thing every day and same routines, whether they're serving us well or not.
That's right.
Tony, you're awesome. Thank you so much for coming in again.
That's right. That's good.
This conversation.
It's good to see you twice. Good to be here. Thank
you. That was Tony Brunton. I'd love to hear from you. Have you done any of those trail events? Are you training for those events? Or are you simply inspired by his 5K of activity every day? And possibly would you be willing to do that too? He's just so inspiring, and I'd love to know what you got from it today as well. So hit me up on Instagram or send an email. I would love to hear from you. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you and your time. Have the best day, week, month, and year. Stay awesome, and we'll catch you next time.